Hello, Lisa Marie Kosas, founder of Global One Health. In this video, I'm going to address a very well-known exercise that's called dead bugs. So as the name would refer, it's an exercise done on the back with the arms and legs in the air, and it's a fantastic core drill. As you'll notice, a lot of these initial videos are really talking about or addressing the concept and important principles of just how to get core activation with minimal load on the body, and I want to start from the ground up, so to speak. So dead bugs are very commonly used in rehab, in physical therapy. If a client has a back injury, it's really advantageous to do exercises on the back because you have the ground supporting the back completely. You have, as I've mentioned, you have no vertical gravitational load on the spine. So they can be modified to be as basic as the client skill level demands, or as their strength level will dictate. So you really want to use this, again, as a drill to strengthen the core, to get some basic joint mobility in the hips and shoulders. Can be used as by itself on a recovery day or as a fantastic warm-up for more advanced exercises to follow. So dead bugs will start on our back, okay? So now I'm gonna just go through a few variations. I'm gonna show you right away what the dead bug exercise looks like. But not everybody is able to maintain proper positioning of their back and doesn't have enough core strength to get into the actual full development. So there are regressions that can be done. So a basic dead bug, you're going to picture, we've talked about marching, we've talked about chair pose, we've talked about how to activate the core in previous videos. So moving right along, and you can always refer back if you want to get some more specifics on those fundamentals. Right, so I always activate core first. You want to pre-activate the musculature to give your body, especially in this drill, to give your spine and your lower back in particular, the maximum support that it needs to stay safe, right? And you don't want the back to come up off of the floor, right? You can see my hand. So what you want to be thinking about here in dead bug is you're going to engage the core and you're going to take your legs into chair pose. Now, I have referenced in one of my other videos that the angle of chair pose is very important. My legs are here, you will notice a decrease in the activation of your abs. So the goal is maximum core activation for core strength. We're trying to build strength and endurance in the core in an isometric way in dead bug, so there's no movement of the spine. I'm moving my extremities to basically away from my center to create more load and demand upon the core structure. So I want to think about pressing, right? And one drill you can do is to put a towel under your back, and then somebody should not be able to pull the towel out. So you want to really actively press the floor, the lower back into the floor. So you're pressing the spine downward, and just the intention of pulling the spine into the ground will also help increase the activation of the abdominal wall in the front, okay? So my core is engaged, I'm pulling my back down, I take my legs up into chair pose, and then my arms would be up to the ceiling. It's very important you have 90-degree angles, shoulders in reference to spine, thighs in reference to spine, and shins, how they relate to the thighs, right? So classic dead bug position is I'm going to extend one leg out straight, and one arm is going to see this arm is overhead, right? And then I'm going to bring that back to vertical. And then I'm going to extend the other leg out straight, and the other arm comes overhead. I'm trying to not move, as minimal as possible movement in the non-moving legs. So opposite arm and leg move away from each other, away from my center of gravity, which is my core. I come back up to vertical position, and I can, again, alternate. You can always alternate from side to side every other rep, or do several reps on one side and then switch sides. So very important when we think about this position. When my leg goes out, let's talk about that first, right? So when my leg goes out, if my back comes up off the floor, if I lose neutral position, if my abs release, my back starts to arch, then I'm not strong enough in here to maintain stability, right? The purpose of this whole drill series of dead bug is that I maintain core activation for trunk stability of my spine while moving at my hip, lower extremity, and upper extremity, all those joints. So when my leg goes out, if I lose that, then there's two things we can address. We can say, am I not engaging enough? So if I engage my core more, can I do that movement and stay safe and supported in my lower back? If not, if engaging the core does not address the issue, you also want to look at how far out is the leg going. Well, if I can't maintain core activation with my leg this close to the floor, you have maximum gravitational load when the leg is this close to the ground. If you take your leg higher, there's a little bit of less gravitational force on the leg, then, right, you might be able to keep the back position. So what you want to do when establishing your personal range of motion when you're doing this drill is how far can I extend my leg out, maintaining activation of the core and stability of the spine. That is the primary focus of this exercise. The height of the leg is not the prime focus. So that is first and foremost, in my opinion, the most important thing you want to be thinking about is activation to create stability in the trunk, right? So, because that's going to prepare you for squats and deadlifts and kettlebell swings and things of that nature. Again, much more demand and load on the body. So, right, height of leg is determined by activation of core and my ability to stabilize. Same thing goes with the arms, right? So if I take my arms overhead and you can see how my rib cage kind of come up and I flare. If I'm flaring in my rib cage, then I'm losing spinal stability in my thoracic spine, a little bit higher up than I might lose it with the leg in the lumbar area. But either way, if any part of the spine starts to move or come up, then you need to brace harder and give more core activation, or take the arm only. And it also depends on not just your ability to activate your core, but these are just important basic drills. If I cannot get my arm in an overhead position without losing my spine position or my ribs start to flare, then that is showing that I have a limitation in my range of motion in overhead at my shoulder girdle. So the goal is I need to be able to get my arms overhead and stop that movement the moment I cannot maintain this. So if I get to here and then this starts to happen, now I'm moving from my spine. I'm no longer moving strictly from my shoulder joint. Again, no movement should occur in the midsection in any of these drills or variations of dead bug. So the very, very most basic variation that you can do is just practice with the arms. Keep your legs down, but activate your core with intention. The pelvic floor is pulling in and up. The abdominal wall is bracing in like a corset or a weight belt. My feet are pushing down because that gives me activation of my legs and hamstrings if I push my feet into the floor. Get the arms to vertical. And the first drill you want to start with, right, is can I just take one arm overhead without moving my spine at all? And can I also make sure that the other arm is not drifting in space, right? It's my ability to move at one joint while stabilizing the opposite side. So sequencing matters. You know, it's not just I'm kind of getting in a position and things are moving all around, right? Integrity of the technique, that's what the focus of these videos, in my opinion, is all about, is how do we get the most basic, clean form of technique to achieve maximum results, right? So first, just test your range overhead and just take your arm overhead as much as you can without allowing any part of the spine to come up. If that feels easy, let's go to the next progression. You take one leg into chair pose, the opposite arm, right? Because as human beings, we walk opposite arm and leg. That's what you're training. You're training opposite relationship of arm, and I'll switch sides. This leg is in chair. The opposite arm will now go overhead. Again, checking in that I'm pressing down into the down foot, activating the tripod, right? And keeping my core stay activated and my spine stable. Next progression, right, is if that feels easy, now I take both arms, keep both arms up, and now I take both legs into chair pose. Again, if you lift up the second leg and your belly releases or your back comes up, you're not ready for the progression. Don't worry about getting to a more advanced variation of an exercise until you've really mastered and owned the one that you can do safely and the most correct way, right? So activate core. I'm actively pulling my back into the floor. My arms, shoulders are not creeping up, right? When my arm goes up, I forgot to mention this, when the arm goes overhead, your shoulder joint should not be going up towards your ear with it. Then you're not staying stable in the joint structure. So yes, I want to move my arm at my shoulder joint. This is a very important lesson, right? Or a point to address. I want to learn how to move my arm at my shoulder without, and I'll turn to the side, you can see, without the scapula and the whole joint structure moving. The integrity of the joint structure has to stay solid and stable, and my arm has to move inside that structure. That is critically important, especially in movements like overhead press, benching, push-ups. Being able to stabilize the shoulder girdle is very, very important in heavily loaded exercises. So again, you want to do the basic drills to prepare your body for more advanced work. So my shoulders are packed down, my core is engaged, I'm pulling my back into the floor. We're now at the progression where we have 2 legs in the air and 2 arms in the air. Again, start by moving the arm because that's weighs less than a leg. So it's a little bit easier to progress by moving the arms first because it's a little less demand and load and they're not as long as the legs. Right, can I keep my back into the ground, keep my core activated, and just move one arm overhead with both legs in chair pose? Again, if this drill feels easy and you could do multiple reps in each side and feel like you want greater challenge, now we progress to another variation. So before we take 2 legs out, if I'm going to take 1 leg out, I recommend start with keeping 1 leg down and add the extension of the leg. So if my right leg goes out, my left arm goes overhead, and I come back in. We'll stay in the same side for a few reps. Am I keeping my core activated? Am I keeping my spine stable? Am I keeping the up arm stable, right? Not drifting in the joint, right? So again, the height of the leg, I can take it up higher to be more of a regressed variation. More advanced or a progression is the leg goes closer to the floor, right? The further out it goes, the foot is moving further away from my core, placing more demand on the core structure. So then the final progression is the one I showed you at the beginning, which is a classic dead bug. Start with the arms up, back into floor, both legs up into chair pose. Now I take 1 leg out, 1 arm overhead. I don't move the other limbs. They stay absolutely vertical. Engage the core. Keep the pelvic floor and the abs turned on. Now I'm going to get a little bit of load and contraction as I talked about when my legs are in the chair pose. My quads will engage slightly. That's natural because of gravity, right? My core and my legs are being held up by the quads and the hips. Try to see if you can get your glute to activate. So if I take my leg out, I don't want my glute to be relaxed. I want to try to squeeze my glute, which will give me more glute endurance, but will also create more support for the front side of the hip joint, which will also create more stability in the hip structure. So the final goal is, can I use my glute to extend my leg out while keeping the back down, the core activated, the shoulder out of the ear, plugging into the back, which will activate my lats and my mid-load traps. So that is the classic dead bug. But I broke it down because it's important. Don't worry about getting to the end result of an exercise if your body isn't ready for it. It's okay. You have to meet the body where it is that day, that week, that month. Whether you just haven't achieved the strength to do the exercise till its end range, or if you're, rehabbing from an injury, or you're just getting started exercising, wherever you are in your fitness journey, accept the place that you are and train your body in that safe parameter where you can get maximum results, the best, cleanest technique. And then when the body can handle that challenge safely, then you progress to a more advanced variation. And I believe that to be true in any exercise that you're doing. Start with the basics, own them, master them, and then you can increase load. Whether it's more reps can make an exercise more difficult. If it's you add a little bit of weight to the body, you take away a base of support. There are many ways to make an exercise more challenging. But in doing so, if you lose the form and the integrity and the purpose of the exercise in its basic format, then you're kind of losing the benefit of what the exercise is designed to give you and what it's supposed to strengthen. And that should be the primary focus. So that is the dead bug and all of the little modified regressions that you can do to build up to the classic position.